Most founders who are stuck between $300K and $1 million are not stuck because they lack clients. They're stuck because the financial system that they built at $300K was never designed to hold what comes next. And every time they try to push through, something breaks. Cash gets tight, margins drift, decisions stop making sense. This video is about the 4 milestones that close the gap. I'm Philip. I help service business owners read their numbers. Why $300K is not the destination. At $300K, most founders are running their business on feel. They know roughly what comes in and they have a sense of what goes out. And when they need to make a decision, they check the bank balance and go from there. That approach works at $300K and it stops working somewhere around $500,000. When the decisions get bigger and the team gets larger and the cost of guessing goes from uncomfortable to genuinely dangerous. The founders who make it from $300K to $1 million, they're not more talented or more special compared to the ones who plateau. They have better financial infrastructure, and that infrastructure has 4 specific milestones. Milestone 1, clean and accurate books. This sounds like the obvious starting point, and most founders think they have it because they have a bookkeeper. Having a bookkeeper is not the same as having clean books. Clean books means that the numbers are accurate, categorized correctly, reconciled monthly, and actually reflect what happened in the business. It means when you pull a report, you can trust what it says. Without this, everything else is built on guesswork. You can't make a real budget if the actuals are wrong. You can't build a forecast if you don't know the real costs. This is the foundation and it needs to be solid before any other milestone matters. A chiropractor I worked with came to us after his first full year in business. His books had been kept by someone who had never worked with a service business before. Revenue was categorized incorrectly, owner draws were misclassified, and the P&L, it showed a completely different picture than what actually happened. We spent the first 60 days getting the books right before we could do anything else. Milestone 2. A budget that actually works. Most founders have either no budget or a budget that they built in January and never looked at again. It's a plan that sets specific targets for revenue and expenses and builds profit in from the beginning. And it gives you a standard to measure against every single month. The reason a budget matters between $300K and $1 million is that is the range where expenses start to grow faster than revenue if nobody's watching. Team costs increase, marketing spend goes up, overhead accumulates. Without a budget, you have no way to see expense creep before it compresses your margin to the point where growth actually makes things worse. With a budget, you can see in February whether you're on track for the year. And without it, you find out in December. Milestone 3, a cash forecast. A budget tells you where you plan to go, and a cash forecast tells you whether the road ahead can actually get you there. This is the milestone that most founders skip, and it's the one that causes the most damage. Because without a forecast, you're making real business decisions based on a plan that you wrote 6 months ago. Revenue has shifted, expenses have moved. The bank balance, it shows you what's there right now, but not what's coming in next week or what is expected to arrive next month. A 13-week cash forecast maps out what's expected to come in and what's expected to go out week by week for the next 90 days. The thing is, it shows you gaps before they become crisis. It tells you whether you can afford the hire before you can make the offer. It removes the guesswork from the most consequential decisions in the business. The founders I work with who have this in place describe the same shift. They stop feeling surprised by their own business. Milestone 4, margin visibility by service. This is the milestone that separates businesses that scale profitably from the businesses that scale and are left wondering why things feel worse than at half the revenue. Most founders know their total revenue and their total expenses. Very few know which specific service or client type is actually driving the profit and which is quietly draining it. At $300K, you can afford to blend everything, because at $700K, you're making real decisions about where to put your marketing budget, where to price higher, and which services deserve more of your team's time. And if you don't know which services are profitable by service line, you're making those decisions blind. I worked with a service business owner doing close to $2 million a year that had never broken down their numbers by service line. When we did it for the first time, One service was generating 44% gross margin, two others were sitting below 20%. They had been scaling all three equally, and once they could see the difference, every resource allocation decision changed. What the path actually looks like. These 4 milestones are not equally urgent at every stage. At 300K, milestone 1 is the priority. Get the books right, nothing else matters until data can be trusted. Between 300K and 500K, milestone 2 becomes critical. A budget gives you a standard. Without it, expenses grow without anybody noticing. Between 500K and 700K, milestone 3. The decisions are too consequential to make without forward visibility. At 700K and beyond, milestone 4. You cannot afford to scale work that is not profitable. Most founders try to move all 4 forward at once and end up making progress on none of them. The path that works is sequential. Where to start? If you are between 300K and $1 million and you are not sure which milestone you're at, start with the most basic question. Can you look at last month's P&L and trust that it's accurately reflecting what happened in the business? If the answer is no, or you're not sure, start there. If the answer is yes, the next question is whether you have a budget you're actively measuring against, then a forecast, then margin by service. The gap between 300K and $1 million is not a revenue problem for most founders. It's a visibility problem. And visibility, it's fixable. Subscribe for more on what each of these milestones actually looks like to build. And if you want to find out exactly where you are and what to prioritize next, the link below is where to start.